clashes, signs of warning in the air. Hit the sofa, fumed out the streets with flare.
Everyone, welcome to Super Jam Podcast. It's a special collaboration with the music promoter Real Sound, and we have got an artist that's playing one of their shows this spring called Special Friend with us today. How are you guys doing?
Super good. Yeah.
Great, yeah. Thank you for having us.
No, absolutely buzzing to have you here. And we've got some students from our Brighton base here today. We've got Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Good, thanks. We've got Storm.
Hello.
Yeah, we got Miles.
Hey, what's going on?
And from our Canterbury base, we've got Lily.
Hiya.
And Ruby as well. How you doing?
Yeah, well, good, thanks.
Good. So we've been listening to your tunes on Bandcamp loads, loving it. We watched a few clips on YouTube that we could find as well. And we got quite a few questions. So I thought I might start off with one of our sort of classic questions that we ask every guest at the start of the interview. Like, imagine you're at a party or like you're at a family event and you're telling people you're in a band and what you do. What do you find is the most common misconception people have about that?
Yeah, I was reading the questions at the airport the other day because I just got back from a week in Ireland where I was hiking around. And I was at the airport reading this question thinking like the difference between like what's the misconception of just like being a musician or like being in a band specifically. And I had a deep thought about the fact that being in a band opposed to being like a solo musician. Obviously, you're making music with other people. And I think people always probably just imagine, you're just having like loads of fun with your friends and like partying. And it just sounds like, I mean, it is fun. But I think the misconception that people kind of don't think about is also a lot of the hard work that actually goes into being like a musician and an artist. And it's not just the being on stage part, and that there's just so much more to it. It's kind of, like the tip of the iceberg is like the performance, but everything that's beneath it is like the music composition. It's like all of the hours of band practices every week, all the organization into putting together a tour, working with, professionals, bookers, venues, and artists. Sometimes like we'll do our own artwork, but sometimes we'll collaborate with other artists who will make like tour posters. And there's just so much more to it than just the performing part. But yeah.
Yeah, a great answer, 100%. And a lot of our students at Super Jam are like doing music themselves, doing music projects, started doing gigs and stuff. So I think a lot of our students have a bit of starting to get an understanding of that as well. For anyone listening who's not got kind of that background, do you want to delve a bit deeper into some of those things? You mentioned like rehearsals and any sort of things that people might not know about. And especially if a young artist listen to it, it might give them an insight into what to get ready for.
Yeah, maybe also the fact that maybe, the first band in which you are going to play is maybe or probably not going to be the band that, will be working best, there's you also have to face, maybe it depends on musicians, but maybe a few years of, joining bands and quitting and putting lots of energy in one project, and because of something that you can't control, it just doesn't work and you have to start over. And it's not the same for every musician, I guess, but it's something that is quite common.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it plays into the wider sort of assumption people have of like, oh, they're talented. And they just think it's like magic and it just happens and it's really easy for that person because they're born with it. And I know some people are born with certain kind of talents, but it's a lot to do with that underlying hours of like dedication and love and hard work people put into it for sure.
And also taking the time to experiment and to see what part you prefer, because I can say from my own personal experience, when I was younger, when I was like 16 in my teenage years, like I didn't play an instrument particularly. I was always interested in singing and music in bands, going to concerts, but it never made sense to me at that point, like how to actually compose music. And it actually came later on in my life where I experimented just through people that I met. And like Guillaume said, with playing in different projects, like before Special Friend, I had played keyboard in a different band, and then I tried just doing backup vocals. And then when I was 25, I decided I wanted to learn how to play drums. So that's how we started playing Special Friends. So some of those bands, like after only a few months, I moved on to different projects. And now we've had this band since like 2018 and still going.
So that's a nice segue into chatting about the band in general, because I know we got questions about your songs and performances, but Calvin had a good question about what made you guys choose the genre that you compose and perform in.
It's not easy to say. I think that for us, I guess things came naturally. We had like a common a taste in a certain indie music style, and we also have different things that we listen to. And for this band particularly, it was just us jamming in a room and finding sounds that we liked and we both liked, and finding I don't know, kind of a vibe, atmosphere that felt good, and we just stopped by that. But I used to play in other bands. I always played in the indie rock noise bands and that kind of style. So yeah, it was quite natural for this band, actually, I would say.
And was it the same for you, Erica? Did you find just it sort of happened naturally?
Yeah, I think that things make sense even to how we met, because when I moved to Paris, because I'm from the US, but I've been in France for 13 years now. And when I moved to Paris, I just kind of naturally gravitated towards certain indie rock scenes because it's just the music that I've always been interested in. And through that, I met other musicians. I met Guillaume, and it was also at that time where I wanted to start myself trying to become a musician. And so, yeah, I think that we had similar tastes in music. And I think just given from, I guess, Guillaume's past experience and from what how he's learned to play and become the musician that he is, and with my experience that was very minimal, like I didn't know how to play drums, so obviously I'm playing very minimalist drumming and also trying to sing at the same time. And just my way of singing is I like have a soft kind of like, not like a big belting lead voice. So the kind of meshing of those just kind of like naturally took on the form that it became, the combination of us both and what we liked.
That's so cool. So it sounds like the music scene in Paris was kind of a good melting pot, inspiration, meeting point. Is there any like bars or cafes or rehearsal rooms or music venues that people in the music, especially indie and noise music scene, hang out in Paris? Just in case anyone's planning a trip soon.
Yeah, it's funny because back in the day when we met, some of those venues have changed. I think it's a pretty global phenomenon of, venues that used to be cool, but then they have to close down because of, I don't know, regulations that changed. And so I think back in the day, there was this venue called L'International. But same, it used to be a venue where a lot of bands used to play, but very recently it closed down because, I don't know, like security issues or like, I don't know, noise problems. So I'd say today, our label is our French Parisian label called Howlin' Banana. The guy that runs that label, he used to do the booking at that venue that closed down, but now he's taken over a new place in a suburb of Paris called Montreuil, and the venue is called Le Chinois, like the Chinese. And so he's putting on a lot of shows there now, and it's a great place. We've played there before too. It was like one of the venues where we had one of our first shows. And besides that, I don't know, there's La Maroquinerie, Le Trabendo. Those are more of like the bigger venues where we got more international bands playing. And then even like the bigger venues like Le Trianon, La Cigale in Pigalle, which is like pretty cool neighborhoods where people like to go out.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing kind of city to build up your sort of band and sound and take all that inspiration. And speaking of some of the band's music, I was thinking, Lily, you had a question about a song called Selkie. Do you want to kind of chat about that a little bit?
So this music that I found or heard, it just kind of reminded me of the style like you had with your music. Just like listening to that music and then like hearing that song, it just made me feel like, oh, it's got that kind of genre, it's got that kind of style, and it's like it kind of just made me really happy, but also like the style of it because the way that you've got like the drums, you've got like the music and the sound in the background, and the way you've created it, it was a really cool way. So like when you thought of creating like a song, what do you have that kind of idea, like how you've easily created that song?
And in this case, we can maybe chat about the song Selkie, because that was one we listened to, wasn't it, Lily?
Yes, that was.
Yeah, if you guys are okay to chat about the idea behind that one.
I guess it came from like like a lot of songs. It came from us jamming, together and having just one simple riff, guitar riff, and starting to sing over it. It's we do that a lot, and there's a lot of things that we don't keep. And sometimes when we feel the vibe is good, we just try to build songs on build a song on it. And for this one, I think we had maybe I think I had Yo La Tengo, this band from Hoboken, from America, the huge influence. And I think for this particular song, it was clear that it was at least in my head, this kind of slow and soft vibe, and but it became something else too. And Erica wrote some really nice lyrics to this song, so I guess she can talk about this too.
Yeah, it's funny because like I feel like we don't really come up with like a set thought of like, okay, what kind of song do we want to make? It just kind of appears naturally from playing, like Guillaume mentioned. So he'll be playing something on the guitar. I'll try to find a drum pattern that works for it, and then we'll sing. And often, especially the case for this song, it's both of us singing at the same time and harmonizing on it. And the lyrics come later. And I think it's just like at some point I was trying to think like, what am I going to talk about? And I think it was also at a time prior to me going on a trip, I think to Scotland. And I had discovered this like Scottish folklore of like what a selkie is. And I just thought it was kind of funny initially because it's kind of like a mermaid, but it's more of like a seal instead of like a fish. So it's like a seal woman. And at first I thought it was funny, but the more I dug into like what it actually means and like the folklore behind it, it felt like a very feminist story of like, women who are being captured, deprived of their freedom, and all they like dream about is returning to the sea, and like when they get their skin stolen, but then they find it again, and it's just liberation. And I don't know. I think it's one of the songs I think the lyrics that I wrote are the most, maybe one of the most proud of. And I also really like the vocal harmonies that we have on this song. I think it's very special. And that's why it ended up becoming one of our singles, like for the past album that came out.
Yeah, amazing. And you might be able to tell my accent. I'm from Scotland originally.
Oh,
and when I seen the name, I was like, oh, and I actually used to work in tourism as a guide, like present tours. And the story of the Selkies was one of the stories we used to tell. So I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I know we've got some students in the room, Brighton, and they've all got some questions they want to ask. So I was going to go around them just now, and I'm going to come back to Lily and Ruby in a minute. But Chris, and just, like we said, everyone in the call has worked in music or written a bit of music or perform music as part of their course and kind of main passion. So I think this is super relevant. So Chris, what were you wanting to find out from the band today?
Hey guys, so I've actually got two questions. So my first question, it goes to both of you. So my question is, if you guys started touring, like doing more tours and stuff like that, where is like your dream like place, like your dream venue to like perform?
Great question. That's a dream venue to perform.
It's funny because initially when we started touring, we were only touring in France, and then I forget in which time frame things happened, but we had our first UK tour last year. I think it was last year. Guillaume, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think so too. Yeah.
Confused now. And I think at some point that may have been the dream at the time, because I think like in terms of the style of music that we play, it just made sense to play in a, I don't know, when you talk about like indie pop historically, it just kind of felt logical to go play in the UK. But now that we've done it, I can't say that it would be London, because I think it was like the Lexington. I'd heard about this venue, and then we got to play there. Now we played there 2 times. So now I think if I had to, I don't know, another place I wish we could tour, I would love to tour, would probably be like in Australia. I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense for us to go there, but I really would like to go.
That would be really
That
cool.
is so
Yeah.
cool.
Absolutely. That would be amazing for sure. Yeah. Great. And Storm, you had a question for the band as well, yeah?
I do, yes. Where is your favorite place to play? I know it's very similar to Chris, but it's more like where? I'm just thinking, like, you've been to a couple of places already. Is there like a most favorite place you'd like to, you've already played that you would be like, yeah, you know what, I'd like to go back and play again?
We played in Coventry in the UK in a record shop called
Just dropped in.
and we really enjoyed it. And actually, we are gonna play there again, so we're really excited about that.
Yeah, because it's funny, because at first I thought once we would do that first UK tour, would we feel some differences between, you know, touring in the UK, touring in Germany, touring in France, touring in Spain, whatever. But yeah, I feel like in the end, since we're all kind of there for the same reason, there's not that big of differences actually, depending on where you go. So I feel like I don't feel like I have a specific place. I think I like playing in Paris just because I know that I'm gonna have a lot of friends that will show up, and it just, you know, it's easy to play the show, and like, you know, it's like an occasion for everyone to gather. But besides that, like Guillaume mentioned, I think just dropped in Coventry was great. And I think
That sounds fun. So what was so special about that little record shop? Was it a good crowd, or was it just a cool environment? Or
I think it's a mix of both, because I feel like Joe and like the team that run it, like everybody, you can tell everybody's so passionate and happy that, you know, like we're just a small indie band, and you don't really expect people to get that excited about it. And like, you know, us showing up, and like he knows all these other bands that are like on our record labels, and like you're never sure who's going to show up. And like, I feel like there was a good turnout for, you know, people came to the show, and it's just a cute little place. And I don't think something magical, I feel like, playing in a record store opposed to like a typical venue, because, you know, you're still like, you're surrounded by music, but it's not as like typical as a regular venue, you know, in terms of sound. It's more intimate, and I think you play quieter as well. And there's something that I think I like playing in those sort of settings as well.
for sure, it sounds great. If I'm in Coventry, I'll be definitely going there. It sounds magic. I do love a record shop gig as well. I think it's really cool when record shops put on stuff like that. I think it's a really good thing to do. So, Miles, have you got any questions you want to ask about gigging or the music or anything like that?
I do have a few questions. This is for both of you. When did you even first start making music together?
I think like technically it was like end of 2017 we tried like playing music for the first time. It was more at that time I was looking for a place to practice playing drums, and we didn't have an ambition of starting a band. But then it was more seriously in 2018 that we started, we decided that we would practice more, and we started making songs pretty quickly. And I think within like 4 months, I think we played our first gig in 2018. And then we released our first EP, I think was also in 2018, and first record end of 2019, and second record, I'm getting lost now in time, but yeah, I think it was 2023 our second record. And now we just finished recording our next album this summer that will come out next year in March 2026.
Congrats, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. That's really cool. And it makes me think about a question Ruby had. So Ruby, you were wondering, weren't you, about if they were planning on making any new albums? Is there anything you want to ask about the new album, Ruby?
Remember a question about the songs. Why do you always make all your like songs repetitive? Because it sounds like the whole song, in every song that we've listened to, has like that repetitive sound. Like, is there something behind that?
Yeah, because it's a cool aesthetic, how it sort of builds and grows from these sort of arrangements, and that we thought that'd be an interesting thing to ask you guys about, if that's cool.
It's a nice question. Actually, it's just it came naturally to just being just 2-person band, we quickly felt the need for either hiring a new musician, but we felt it could, change. It would be too big of a change, and we liked just being two. So I started using a looper pedal, and so I would use that when we jam. So I would have like to record just a simple guitar riff and let it play for the whole song. So I think it's just the reason is just that, we want to stay two, and I have this looper pedal and we use it a lot, and it's mixed between like what we really want in terms of aesthetics and music, and also just the fact that we are just two, and that's the equipment we have, and we use it, and it end up, with this music,
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, it's not. I'm not like super fluent in English, so sometimes it's a bit hard, for me.
No, that was a great answer. Honestly, great answer, and it really makes sense. And it sort of plays into that classic thing of using what you've got, pushing right against any limitations you've got. It's actually a good thing as an artist. Well, a lot of artists say that, and also it does add this cool, like almost like dreamlike, hypnotic quality to the music, which is a great thing, I think. So yeah, I think we all enjoyed that, and thanks for explaining a bit about where that comes from, because I think it's really cool to know that for sure. Now, we were wanting to know a little bit about maybe performing, and of course, you've got your gig coming up in London as well, so I thought we could chat about that. And Calvin was wanting to ask a little bit about do you ever get anxious before performing? And I'll maybe do two questions at once. Do you ever feel anxious before performing? And what is the hardest thing about performing?
I think for me, when we first started this band, and I was first starting out as a musician, it was like one of my first live performance experiences. I used to get so anxious, like terribly, terribly anxious, to the point where I wouldn't invite any of my friends or share anything publicly saying that we had a gig. I would just wait until it was done, and then afterwards be like, "Oh, we played yesterday." But then obviously with time, as like, this is just from my personal experience, as soon as I started getting more confident, like I said, the more you practice, the more you don't have to like worry about, because like what can you be anxious about? You can get anxious about making mistakes, forgetting things, making errors. Yeah, but I think the more you practice, the less likely it is that you'll mess up. And so it kind of takes away that anxiety, and I guess you just kind of know what to expect more when you get in front of a group of people. So I feel like it depends also on the band, because I feel like with this band in particular, since we've been playing now for a while, I don't feel as anxious anymore getting up on stage. I think there's always still a bit of like adrenaline, but I'm not like shaking to but I realized, like, from a different band that I started playing in not that long ago, since it was like starting a new project and it being new again, I felt the kind of anxiety coming back again. So
Ah, cool. What about you, Guillaume? Have you ever had those nerves, or also the other question? What's the hardest thing about being a performer?
Yeah, I definitely had some stage fright, and it got it got easier, by playing lots of gigs. But it's always and it's funny because you can't tell when you're gonna have it. Sometimes you're playing a big venue and I don't feel too much anxious, and sometimes it's just like playing in front of friends, and suddenly I feel anxiety, and I don't know how to explain it, but having played lots of gigs, it helps, because even if you feel like the anxiety, it's part of the process, so it's easier to overcome. And about what's the hardest thing when you perform, I guess it's different for every person and also different for every band. I know with this band in particular, I have to, for myself, I have to be careful about, when I record the loops, because I always record them live. So I have to be super precise. I also have to you know, I sing in this band too, and the vocals are super. Since the music is often really quiet, you know, you can hear the vocals very clearly. I used to play in noisier bands, so now I have to be a better singer, you know, and still there's a lot of things that I have to be careful with this band. So that kind of maybe a difficult part for me, but I guess it's different for everybody.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And I think that will help anyone listening kind of feel like, oh, it's normal to get a bit nervous before a gig and help them sort of process that for themselves too as well. Now, I was wondering if any of our students in the Brighton studio, have you guys got any other questions you want to ask? And then we're chatting about performing a bit, so you can talk about that, or you can take the conversation wherever you want. Chris, you're wondering, yeah.
I've already got a good question in mind. So, guys, I'm going to know this. Why did you decided to post on Bandcamp? Like, you could have used like other streaming platforms like Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music. Why did you choose Bandcamp?
Great question there. So what Bandcamp was where we found your music anyway. So what is there one reason you guys like Bandcamp or anything like that?
Because I feel like Bandcamp is like the most direct place you can share your music. And if people want to buy merch, like we're the ones actually operating behind it and we're the ones uploading it. Whereas if you're going through a streaming platform, we're obviously not going to get paid anything. and unfortunately, though, you know, it's one of those questions that I think we think more about today. I think back in the day, you know, it was just kind of natural. Like you try to put your music everywhere and like the labels distribute it. But I think it's one of those questions, especially today, when you talk about like what are the ethics behind some of these streaming platforms. So I feel like even recently, like I canceled one of my subscriptions to a streaming platform. I won't say which one. And I was going back to Bandcamp because, you know, you can actually like contribute to, you know, the bands if you want to have like a digital album and you don't have publicity, ads, and all of these things. So yeah, I think Bandcamp is great.
Yeah, great answer. And they've been flying the flag for independent artists for, I think, over a decade now. And it's a great question, Chris, because a lot of us at Super Jam are learning about different digital distributors and different ways you can get your music out there. It's cool to hear. I've used it before, but it's good to share with people who might not know loads about it. How, behind Bandcamp, it goes straight to the independent artist behind Bandcamp. So that's a really cool aspect. Have you used it much before, Chris, or seen it much before?
I've seen what Bandcamp looks like, but personally, I kind of don't want to use it. Like, I make, no offense to anyone who uses it, but I use like SoundCloud and like other things like that. Even though I can't post on Spotify because I don't have a distributor. SoundCloud to me is more easier to do, so I can post my music. I do have 2 songs out there, by the way. So.
Hey, a little plug.
But like, yeah, SoundCloud is just so much more easier for me in my personal views.
Yeah.
So no argument here.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway is each artist has got to find what suits them and their music and their genres and beliefs the most. So yeah, cool. It's good, interesting to talk about that kind of thing for sure. And of course, that's where we can find your music and albums, guys, which we've covered a bit of. So I'm kind of thinking it might be nice to bring it back to chatting about the show. So I thought it was a great question Lily came up with, and it was like, how do you think you guys are going to feel when you start playing on stage at the Real Sound gig in spring? That's in London.
That was the one, yeah. Right. I think what I meant by it was, so like when you're going to play at that actual gig in London, like how are you going to feel? Because obviously this is a new thing that you're going to be doing soon. And obviously, like you've explained, you've played in London before, you've played in different places. But for this kind of certain location that you're playing at, it like you might get that anxiety, or you might get that like feeling that you're going to playing in a new location. So like in your own mind or in your own point of view, like what do you think you're going to feel when you start playing at this actual location for the first time?
It's true that I don't know this specific venue. We've never played at Moon Lake. And I think it's just the apprehension of, you know, the unknown of not knowing like what to expect. Like, is it like, I don't even know how big it is. Like, do people, where is it located in the city? Like, are people going to show up? It's like those, you know, typical questions that you kind of ask yourself. Yeah. And I think in the end, you just kind of hope that there will, like, regardless of where you are, you just kind of hope that there'll be a decent enough turnout where because it's like something that I feel like I personally don't always want to feel affected by. I feel like if I play in front of nobody versus like a sold out show, I feel like it shouldn't make a difference. But I think that there's also a bit of apprehension about not knowing like what's going to be the turnout. So I hope that people come to our London show and you tell all of your London friends to come, so that way we all have a great time.
Yeah, we will, for sure. Awesome. And I was going to go back to the Brighton studio to see if Storm or Miles had any other questions. Just Storm saying a question to ask, yeah?
I was wondering, I don't know if you've heard of it, but we one of the biggest festivals in the world, Glastonbury. I wanted to know if you have a dream of ever performing there.
Oh yes, for sure. I've watched so many videos of band playing there. So yeah, I didn't think of that when you earlier when you asked about dreams, but I would love to playing in Glastonbury for sure.
I will say it is huge. It is massive. I've actually been there. I'm one of the first students here to actually get in and work for them. It is huge. I will definitely say that. There's loads of people who absolutely want to like listen to new music. So you'll get a really good crowd if you ever get the chance to perform for them. I think your music is so beautiful. And it would I can think so many people would absolutely love to listen to your music. It's absolutely beautiful. So just keep going, guys. You'll get there eventually.
Glastonbury, here we come. Yeah.
It's funny because it's something I think I never even would have considered. But I mean, like, why not? If somebody,
Why not, right?
If somebody asked us to play, I think we would say yes. But it's not something that I thought would be a reality. But who knows? You never know.
Yeah, and we saw from your bio you guys have played some festivals throughout France before as well. How does that differ between playing like a sort of normal venue gig, and does the excitement change? And what was it like doing those festivals in France?
I think what's nice about playing those big festivals is like the difference between playing a regular gig is that generally at a gig where maybe you're the headliner or the opener, people are specifically coming for just those 2 or 3 bands. But when you play at a festival, there's so many more artists. So it's the best opportunity to be discovered by other people, and also, drawing crowds from maybe people who have never heard of you or never seen you, and then end up coming up to you at the end saying like, yeah, I'd never heard of your band, but I loved it, and And so I think it's just, it's a great place to reach new audiences. And I think, it's just a very different atmosphere, especially when you're playing outside versus like an indoor show. It's not the same.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so exciting. Yeah, festival atmospheres are amazing, and our students quite often go to Great Escape Festival, which is like a multi-venue indoor and outdoor one in Brighton. So our Brighton students often go to that. So I can imagine you guys at that actually totally, because it's really quite independent level bands, or like say medium level bands as well. So I could imagine you guys at that for sure. Miles, speaking of Brighton, we're of course in the Brighton studio. Any questions you want to ask?
Well, I have a question about how the album artworks are created. How do you create them? Is it either drawing or is it created digitally?
So I do all of the artwork. I kind of have a background in graphic design, but a lot of what I do is just kind of self-taught, very minimalistic, colorful, pastel stuff. It depends. The first EP artwork that I did was more of a collage. I had found like some old magazine, like typography magazine, and like found an image that I liked that I just kind of warped in like Photoshop and then changed the colors. And but then later, I think the first album cover was like a hand-drawn image, but then I color in like Photoshop. So it's a mix between like drawing and digital for like the coloring. And same with the second album as well. It was exactly the same process. And the next album artwork that hasn't been revealed yet is also just it's an illustration that I do by hand, and then I upload into my computer to color it. So that way I have more like freedom to be able to try different things instead of like coloring it directly and then just doing a scan. Even though someday I would like to try to do that, but so far, it's a mix between print and digital. Yeah,
that's so cool. And speaking of the new album, are you guys going to be playing some of the new songs from it when you come over?
Absolutely. That's the funny thing is, like, I think that we were kind of at least in my mind, it made more sense that we would have waited to like announce like the new songs, like a new single, and then like announce that the album's coming and then announce the tour. But then it's true that like the time frame is quite short. So it ended up us announcing the fact that we're going to be doing this 2-week tour in the UK in March. And we haven't officially announced that we have a new record, but I just hope that people kind of, caught on to the fact that, there will be a new record and there'll be a lot of new songs, there'll be new merch, everything. And I think mostly new songs for the next time. So even people who've seen us before on the last tour that we did, it will be a whole new set.
Amazing. I was also going to ask, I know near the end of the interview, Lily's usually got a few last questions. I thought I'd give a chance for Lily. It's almost become a feature, Lily's last questions. So we maybe got time for one, maybe two just now, Lily, okay?
Yeah, no, that's all right. So my first question I normally would give is, since you've been creating your music for a very long time, is there like a certain song from one of your albums, or even from your new album that you're bringing out soon, is like one of your most favorite songs that you've ever created? Like, was like a certain part of it that you really liked, or like why is it technically your most favorite song?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I don't think I have, one particular song that, feel like, but there's some songs that I like more than others. Maybe on our first record, this song called "The Flaring Jing," I really like this song. Yeah, it's have to do with the atmosphere again, and yeah, it's a really difficult question for me. Maybe it's sometimes it changes. One day it's one song, and you play it too much, and then you get sick of it. So it's hard for me to answer. Maybe Erica, you have an answer.
I don't know. It's just funny because, like you said, it's a whole perspective thing of like in the moment. Like you said, when you're like composing the songs, you might suddenly have a song that just feels nice to play. Like I know that there's songs I enjoy playing more than others, simply because of maybe like a technical thing, but also just like singing it and being like the whole vibe of it. But it's funny because as soon as there are new songs, like it shifts. Because I think that obviously when we were working on our last record, I had a favorite song. I think Selkie at a time was one of my favorite songs because I don't know, it just felt it's very uplifting. It's very like there are the shifts in the song. I like the vocal harmonies. And we had like someone come play violin on the song. It was the first time we ever did something like that. So at a time it felt very like complex to me. But like again, as human beings and as musicians, artists, as time evolves, and like we've worked on this new record, I feel like, it just feels like you improve each time. So I feel like now I would probably say one of my favorite songs is off of the next record that hasn't come out yet, which I can't say yet because nobody knows what it is, but you'll hear it soon. But I feel like, yeah, each time I feel like, wow, like this album is the best one compared to the last one, even though
brilliant. And it's been so great, generous for you guys to share your time and share all these stories and stuff about the album and about the gig coming up and the tour. I've just got one last question to round off on, if that's all right with you guys. So like I said, most of our students are 16 to 25 years old, kind of just getting into their music careers. So if you could step into the Back to the Future car and you're driving it back to the past, you meet yourself when maybe you were 16, 17, around about that age, what kind of conversation would you have with yourself? What would you want to talk to yourself about or tell yourself?
Well, I think from my own personal experiences, like, because I know exactly how I was like when I was back being 16, thinking like I wanted to be a musician, but I didn't know how to do it yet. And I feel like it's actually quite simple. You just need to start learning the instrument. I felt like I waited way too long, to start getting into it. And like, again, you can make errors. You can start with something and decide later, maybe it's not the best one you want. But I feel like if you're like young and you want to start becoming a musician, like you just pick something and start practicing, start learning songs maybe from bands that you like, and then that'll like give you a sense of like, do you enjoy playing sort of instrument? I think that's kind of how a lot of bands and musicians start out. I think probably Guillaume would say the same. I think that's probably how he started playing guitar. It was like playing covers of bands that that he liked. Yeah,
of course. I would say maybe to myself that go meet people, go see shows, go try try to play with people, and if it fails, it's okay. It's part of the process, you know. Try.
Amazing. Well, it's been so awesome having you guys on the podcast. I want to say a massive thank you for, like I said, for giving your time and all these stories and advice and inspiration. Thanks to the student team for doing a bit of research and kind of coming up with questions in advance and helping me host the show as well. Thanks to everyone who's listening or watching this on YouTube. And I hope you guys enjoy the gig that's coming up or can catch these guys on tour. All the details will be in the comments and kind of description and stuff below. So thanks again, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Hit the sofa, fuse out the streets with a flare